She hooked 2 fingers in his collar and slapped the light out of him. The sound cracked across the study, his glasses skidded, a thin line of blood showed on his lip, and for a second, nobody breathed. My aunt did it. She slid a folded page onto the desk and tapped it once with her nail, like a judge tapping a gavel. Grandma's teacup rattled on the saucer. Her right arm didn't rise. The cup tipped, and the tea ran across the wood. People stared at the slap. They should have looked at the page. That was the thing that cut us open. To understand how we got to that desk, we have to go back 9 days. It started in the hospital cafeteria under humming lights. The coffee was burnt. My grandmother Ruth lined up sugar packets in a neat row, then broke the row and started over. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "If the back porch doormat is flipped," she said, "don't go inside." She pressed her lips together at once, as if she wanted the words back. "Forget I said that." I tried to laugh it off. I didn't. The sentence stuck to me. 2 days later, we buried my grandfather. The church was full of people who liked him, or owed him, or simply respected a long life lived out loud. At the very back, there was a woman in a black coat who stood alone. She never stepped up for the condolence line. She slipped out before the last hymn. No one else seemed to see her. I did. It was the way she watched the door more than the casket. That night, after casserole dishes and quiet small talk, an unmarked envelope slid under the study door. My name was on the front in hard block letters. Inside it said 4 words. "Check your porch doormat." I went outside, lifted a corner, and heard tape scrape the wood. A tiny brass key lay there, cold from the night. It sat in my palm like it had been waiting. In the morning, a black sedan idled 2 houses down while I took out the trash. When I looked up, the driver rolled away. It could have been nothing. It didn't feel like nothing. At 3 o'clock, we gathered in grandfather's study for the will reading. You already saw the worst of it. My aunt, Lydia's hand across the lawyer's face, the page slapped onto the desk, the lamp shaking, my grandmother's right arm going useless as tea crept across the wood. The paramedic said, "Right side weakness," and moved fast. The room emptied and left a hard hush. In that hush, I picked up the page my aunt had laid down. One line had a deep underline, hard enough to dent the paper. "I give the house to my wife, Ruth, for life." After her, to my firstborn, Evelyn. Firstborn. Not my mother, who had married in after grandfather's son died. Not my uncle. A name I had never heard around our table. The line didn't read like a legal trick. It read like a door opening to a hallway none of us had walked. At the hospital, the neurologist said, "Ischemic stroke and watch speech and swallow." Mom held Grandma's good hand and stared at the clock. I sat under the window with the brass key in my pocket. It kept reaching for my fingers. The next morning, I went to Eastern Bank with the key. The manager told me I needed a co-signer. I called our lawyer, Peter Hale, and put him on speaker. His careful tone sanded down the word no. We took the key into the vault anyway. Box 317 clicked and slid free. Inside was a sealed envelope stamped open upon proof of death and a cassette tape. A cassette, not a file. Old plastic with 2 little spools. It meant he wanted us to hear him, not just read him. The church basement had a dusty boombox. Pastor Daniel found an outlet. The tape whirred. My grandfather's voice came through thin but steady. "If you're hearing this," he said, "I didn't get to say it my way. Before Ruth, I married a girl named Alice in 1969. It lasted 6 months. There was a baby. I signed papers I should not have signed. I told Ruth. We shut that door and tried to forget. I looked for the child for 20 years. Her name is Evelyn." He paused and cleared his throat. "The house keeps Ruth safe for life. After Ruth, if Evelyn is found, the house goes to her. If not, sell it and fund scholarships in her name. Peter, file this properly. Keep Lydia away from it." Then he said my name. "Claire, you'll go looking. You won't like everything you find." I slid the tape into a tote like it could break if a breeze touched it. That night the doormat was flipped. There was no broken lock. Drawers were open. Papers had been touched and put back wrong. The tote with the tape was gone. The officer wrote his report like he was recording the weather. "Probably kids," he said, and left us with that. Peter showed up at the side gate as the patrol car rolled away. He had the face of a man who had practiced saying sorry on the drive over. "I can get the bank to certify the letter," he said. "You'll need that for court." "I need the tape." I said, "Paper can be twisted." "A voice can't." He nodded once. "I'll try." At 2:16 a.m., a text came from an unknown number. "Stop digging. You have what belongs to me. No name, no follow-up." The black sedan drifted past the corner just after dawn, unhurried, like it had all the time in the world. 3 days later, Grandma's words came back like a trickle finding a path. T, she said. Home. Then she made the hardest one, Evelyn. Tears slid into her hair because half her face forgot how to catch them. You knew, I said. She nodded. Before you, she said. There was a call. She wanted a picture of him as a boy. I hung up. I called Peter. He said leave it alone. The words sat between us like a heavy box we both could see, and neither of us wanted to open. They made one thing clear. If I wanted the truth, I had to be the one to pull it into the light. I sent Peter a message. 6 o'clock. Bring everything you don't want to hide. He came at 6. 12 with a folder and a look that told me I had been right to ask. He laid out photocopies of checks from our family foundation to a company named L. Whitman Advisory. My aunt's company. The memo line said, consulting, strategy, mitigation. The dates marched across 4 years. The total at the bottom made my stomach turn. Herbert saw this report before surgery, Peter said. He told me to draft the codicil the next morning. I stared at the numbers until they stopped swimming. Numbers don't care about feelings. They tell the story by themselves. Anything else? I asked. He pressed a latch behind a book on his shelf. A narrow panel opened into a small room. A woman stood up. She held a coat. She had my grandfather's jaw and a tired kind of calm. I'm Evelyn, she said. No drama, no apology for existing. I'm not here for a bedroom. I want the truth on paper. She told me how grandfather had found her through a private investigator 3 years ago. They had written letters. He had asked to meet. She had agreed, canceled, then agreed again. They sat in a diner under bad lights, and he told her he was sorry. He gave her a private tape in case he didn't make it. She stood at the back of the church at the funeral. She left the note under our door. She saw the doormat flipped and ran because 2 men were already in our yard. She heard one say, "Get the tape." Then, the letter. Who sent them? I asked. Your aunt does not touch mess, she said. She pays for it. That was enough to change our posture. We would stop answering rumors. We would set our own room and fill it with facts. We booked the town building for an evening estate update. We kept the invites simple on purpose. No big claims. No speeches promised. When people arrived, they brought their phones and their curiosity. The room smelled like wet coats and old varnish. We kept the faces at the front to 4. Me, Grandma in her wheelchair, Evelyn and Peter. Fewer names, easier to follow. I spoke first and kept my sentences short. You've heard rumors, I said. Here are facts. My grandfather made a mistake long ago. He tried to fix it. He recorded his words. Please listen. Evelyn pressed play on her copy. My grandfather's voice filled the room and made people lean forward. He said her name. He said he was sorry. He said the house was not a prize, it was a promise. He asked us to keep Ruth safe and make things right. I held up the bank's affidavit about the safe deposit box. This matches the codicil, I said. Then I held up the stack of checks. Our foundation paid my aunt's company $241,800 in consulting fees while my grandfather was alive. Lydia stood in the second row. Lies, she said, sharp as glass. Your company's name is on these, I said. The account numbers match. The dates match. If you want to explain it, you can do that with the board. Or with a judge. She glared at Peter. Fix this. Peter's voice was low. No, Lydia. I filed the audit. I'm resigning from the foundation. I've told the bar about my part. What part? I asked, still not looking away from my aunt. When my marriage fell apart, he said, I took a loan from the foundation and planned to repay it. I have repaid it with interest. It was wrong. It stung. It also cleared the fog. He wasn't clean, but he was done hiding. That mattered. We'll file everything, I said. The codicil, the bank letter, the checks, the repayment letter. Lydia walked out and slammed the door. Nobody followed. A week later, the probate judge read the codicil, read the bank letter, listened to Peter admit his loan, and watched Grandma squeeze Evelyn's hand. The judge didn't give a speech. She just set things in order. The codicil is valid, she said. The house stays with Mrs. Whitman for life. After that, if Evelyn is living, it goes to her. The foundation will complete its audit and reseat its board. Any wrongdoing will be referred for charges. We walked out of the courthouse into air that felt cold and clean. For a day, I thought that would be the end of the noise. It wasn't. A short piece ran in the paper calling me combative and saying I was blocking a revitalization plan. It quoted a family source who said I was unstable. It did not name my aunt or mention the checks. I didn't argue online. I printed the article and paper-clipped it to a packet. The codicil, the bank letter, the check totals on a single page, and Peter's signed repayment letter. I dropped copies at the library, the clerk's office, and the senior center. I didn't add a note. People who care about the truth know how to read. That's when the fight moved to our doorstep. 2 days later, right after breakfast, I heard diesel and a truck brake hissed. A moving truck stopped in front of our house. A dark SUV slid in behind it. Lydia stepped down in a white coat and dark glasses. 2 men jumped from the truck with gloves and a clipboard. "We're here for the estate inventory," she told them, loud enough for neighbors to hear. "Court ordered." "Stop," I said from the porch. "There is no order." She held up a printed email thread like a flag. From 6 feet away, it looked official. Up close, it was nothing. "Inside," she told the men, "take the piano, the paintings, the silver, start with the desk. The lawyer's file is in there." One mover reached for the knob. I blocked him with my arm. He lifted his hands. "Ma'am, we don't want trouble." "Then don't start any," I said. I took out a folded paper from my jacket, the temporary injunction I'd picked up that morning as soon as the clerk's window opened. It barred any removal of property pending the audit and gave penalties for violations. It had a blue seal and today's date. "This is the order," I said. "You enter, you violate it." Lydia leaned close. "You think a stamp protects you?" "It protects Grandma," I said, "and it protects this house." She snatched at the injunction. I didn't let go. The sleeve of my jacket tore. The stamp stayed. She stepped past me and grabbed the wedding photo off the wall, a black and white of my grandparents smiling at each other like the room was just them. "Mine," she said, and pushed it into a box. I took it back. Not rough, firm. "Not yours," I said. She lunged toward the study. Her shoulder hit mine. The mover's box clipped my shin. The frame slipped in my hands. I caught it against my chest and stepped back over the threshold. "Enough," a voice said at the gate. A deputy came in fast and took everything in. At one glance, the truck, our standoff, the paper in my hand. "Ma'am," he said to my aunt, "you and your crew need to step off the porch." She pointed at me. "She assaulted me." "She blocked an unlawful entry," he said. "If you have a court order, show me." She held up the email printout. He didn't even sigh. "This is not an order," he said. He read my paper, tapped the seal with his pen, and nodded. "This is an order. Move your truck. Now." The movers carried 2 boxes back without a word. Lydia stared at me like she could set me on fire with her eyes. "This isn't over," she said. "It is for today," I said. When they were gone, the deputy taped a copy of the injunction to the front door at eye level. "Call if anyone comes back," he said. "Cameras help." That night I installed motion lights and a simple camera pointing at the back door. My neighbor came over with a small tool bag and helped me change the deadbolt. We set a new strike plate and tightened the hinges. We fixed the gouge the mover's box had left on the floor. It wasn't fancy work. It was enough. 2 nights later, near midnight, the motion light snapped on. The camera chimed on my phone. 2 shapes moved at the back steps. One had a pry bar. The other carried a bag. I stood at the top of the basement stairs and called out, loud and even, "Police are on their way. Your faces are on camera." I had already pressed call. The first man bolted at the word police. The second slipped on the new step tread and went down hard. He scrambled up and ran, limping. The camera caught the plate number on the car they dove into. 20 minutes later, a patrol car rolled slow past our street, then stopped at the corner like it was thinking. In the morning, the detective took the footage and didn't shrug it off. He said the car was a rental tied to a card that had shown up in other messes. He said, "We're working it." I believed him because I had a copy of the video on my phone. Seeing the moment the pry bar touched our paint and then slid away felt like a door closing on the worst of it. After that, the noise quieted. The audit finished. The county filed a charge against my aunt for misuse of funds. She took a deal, agreed to repay the foundation, and moved 2 towns over. She still posted online. The posts mattered less each week. We went on with the plan my grandfather had recorded. We set up a simple trust so Grandma could stay safe, and after her, Evelyn would choose what to do with the house. Until then, the house would do a job. We fixed a loose tread on our own steps. We helped Mr. and Mrs. Palmer down the block repair a porch board that had cupped and become a trap for the wife's cane. We sat with Mrs. Connolly while her tax letter got sorted. None of it was dramatic. all of it was a kind of repair that lasts. Peter sold the cabin, repaid the foundation with interest, resigned, and sent his letter to the bar. He took tenant cases after that. On Saturdays, he came by with work gloves. He didn't talk much. He carried lumber and listened to the contractor across the street explain how to sister a joist. It turned out he learned fast when he kept his mouth shut. One afternoon, with sun on the rug and the house quiet in a good way, Grandma lifted her left hand and tapped the little dish where we kept the brass key. I brought it over and set it in her palm. Her fingers shook. She held it out to Evelyn. "Are you sure?" I asked. Grandma nodded once, slow and firm. Evelyn didn't cry. She closed her hand around the key and looked at Grandma with a face I can still see. We had not said a big speech. We had done a small thing that meant more. We kept going. Not every day was clean. Bills still arrived. A boiler estimate still made my stomach twist. Some mornings I woke up angry and had to go stand on the back steps to let the air take it. 2 times I almost quit. One night I even opened a real estate site and scrolled pictures of little apartments where the only problem would be whether I liked the view. Then I closed the page, walked out to the porch, and flipped the doormat back into place with my foot. It used to mean don't come in. Now it meant we are not afraid of this house anymore. A boy on a bike stopped one evening and pointed at the steps. "Is this where people go if they need a fix?" he asked, breathing hard. "It is," I said. He nodded and rode off like he had a message to deliver. People will remember the slap because it was loud and easy to tell. They will remember the day the moving truck showed up and the deputy told my aunt to step off the porch. They will remember the picture I caught against my chest before it fell. Those things matter. The physical things make the story real. I remember other things too. The key in Evelyn's hand, the click of the new deadbolt, the soft sound a board makes when it draws down flush under the driver, the blue seal on the injunction, the police lights washing the front steps, while a report was written that finally meant something. My grandmother's good hand covering mine as we signed papers that kept the house safe. That was the payoff. Not just a feeling, not just a lesson. A truck turned back. A break-in stopped. A door secured. A picture rehung. A key passed from one palm to another. And a house that belongs, again, to the people who live in it.